There's a moment in every man's life when he's right on the edge. Maybe it's in a boardroom, palms sweating, pulse racing, while someone takes credit for your hard work. Or maybe it's in traffic, that one person cuts you off, and for a split second, you feel something boil inside, and sometimes you don't say anything, but other times you snap. Now picture this: Rome 170 AD. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, is preparing to lead his army into battle. He's not yelling, he's not pacing or panicking, he's still calm, like the eye of the storm. Why? Because even while war loomed and betrayal brewed, all around him Marcus had learned one powerful truth. You don't have to be ruled by what you feel. That's what we're here to talk about. How do you stay composed when the world feels like it's closing in? Why do some people collapse under stress while others move through chaos untouched? It's not about being emotionless. It's about something more powerful than that. It's about choosing how you respond. That choice, that pause between stimulus and response, that's where your power lives. And Marcus Aurelius knew that better than anyone. He didn't just sit in a palace and talk about peace. He lived through wars, plagues, betrayal, heartbreak, and somehow kept his soul intact. So if you've ever felt like your emotions are running the show, if you've ever said something in anger that you regretted later, if you've ever spiraled into fear or let sadness control your day, you're not alone. Marcus figured it out 2,000 years ago, and today we'll break it down together, step by step, so you can learn how to lead your own life with the same calm, steady power. Stay with me. Now, before we really get into it, I just want to say, if you've ever felt overwhelmed by your own emotions, you're in good company. Even the strongest people, the leaders, the protectors, the quiet ones who seem like nothing ever shakes them, they have moments when things slip, moments when the inside feels louder than the outside. And if you're watching this, it means you want to change that. That's powerful. Because awareness, just noticing that something needs to change, that's the first move toward peace. Now let me ask you something. Who do you picture when you think of a man completely in control of himself? Someone with a beard and a scroll, maybe. Someone who looks like a wise old sage. What if I told you that man was also a warrior, a father, a husband, a man who lost children, fought wars, and ruled the most powerful empire on earth, all while writing quiet thoughts to himself at night, just to stay grounded? His name was Marcus Aurelius, and he didn't talk about Stoicism because it sounded cool. He lived it every single day. Now, Stoicism might sound like one of those old, cold philosophies that tells you to stop feeling things. But that's not it at all. Stoicism isn't about becoming numb. It's about becoming calm. It teaches you how to keep your center, even when life throws 100 things at you all at once. It's not about pretending you're okay. It's about actually becoming okay by learning what matters and what doesn't. It's like armor, not for your body, but for your mind. So if you've ever lost control and said something you didn't mean, if you've ever let anxiety keep you up all night, or let jealousy cloud your thinking, even when you knew better, you're not broken. You just haven't learned the tools yet. And in this video, I'm going to show you what those tools look like and how Marcus used them in real life, not just in theory. Now, real quick, before we begin, I would really appreciate it if you liked the video, so that you can help me continue spreading Stoic philosophy. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend you do so, and activate the bell, so you don't miss any future videos on Stoicism. Because let's be honest, this world doesn't exactly teach us how to handle our emotions. It teaches us how to react, not how to respond. That's why this matters, and as we walk through this together, I'll keep things simple, human, and real. Because the goal isn't to sound wise, it's to live wisely. Now let's keep going, because once you understand what emotions actually are, you'll stop being afraid of them. So let's start here. What are emotions, really? Most people think emotions are the problem, that anger, fear, sadness, jealousy, those are things to fight against, to avoid, to bury. But Marcus Aurelius didn't see it that way. He understood something most of us were never taught. Emotions aren't enemies, they're signals. They're like wild horses, powerful, instinctive, and fast. But if you don't learn how to hold the reins, they'll throw you. And that's what happens to most of us, right? Someone says something that hits a nerve, and boom, we react without even thinking. Or we feel anxiety coming in like a wave, and instead of noticing it, we drown in it. But emotions aren't trying to destroy us. They're trying to tell us something. Think of them like messengers, not masters. Now Marcus was constantly reminding himself of this. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That quote, it hits, doesn't it? Because most of our emotional storms come from outside events. What someone did, what might happen, what we can't control. That's why one of the most important Stoic teachings is this, the dichotomy of control. It's the idea that there are only two types of things in this world, things you can control. Two, things you can't. And emotions. They live in the space between those two. You can't control what someone says to you, but you can control how you interpret it. You can't always stop anxiety from showing up, but you can choose whether you feed it or observe it. Let me give you a quick example. Imagine you're walking into a meeting. You're feeling nervous. Your mind is racing. What if I mess up? Now, that emotion, anxiety, it's real, but you have two choices. You can spiral with it, or you can pause, take a breath, and ask, is this something I can control? You can't control how people see you, but you can control how well you prepared. You can control your breath, your presence, your tone, and just like that, the wild horse doesn't feel so wild anymore. That's what Stoicism trains you to do. Not ignore the emotions, but notice them, name them, and hold the reins tight, even with anger, which might be the hardest one to manage. When Marcus felt himself getting angry, he'd stop and ask, is this person even capable of understanding what they did? And if they're not, why am I expecting them to act better? That one reflection alone saved him 1,000 emotional explosions. Same with jealousy. He didn't say, don't feel jealous. He said, remind yourself that those things you envy, they're often meaningless. And even if they're not, you only control your path, not theirs. Now I know this isn't always easy. Sometimes emotions feel too strong, like they're swallowing us. But that's why Stoicism is practice. You don't learn this in one day. You learn it by catching yourself in small moments, over and over. And that starts with awareness. So the next time you feel triggered, even just a little, ask yourself quietly, is this in my control? That one question can stop a wave from becoming a tsunami. Take a moment with that now. Once you start thinking this way, you realize emotions are signals, not punishments. You're already a step closer to control. And that brings us to something even more important, because now that you understand emotions, the next move is learning how to respond to them, instead of reacting without thinking. Let's talk about that. Mindset shift. From reacting to responding. So now you know. Your emotions are messengers. They're not the enemy, they're just signals. But that leads us to the next big question. What do you do when the signal hits? How do you stop yourself from reacting on impulse and instead respond like someone who's fully in control? Marcus Aurelius didn't just know what emotions were, he trained himself every single day to pause, to breathe, to choose his response, even in the middle of absolute chaos. And that pause, that space between trigger and reaction, that's where emotional power is born. Think about it. When you're angry, your first instinct might be to yell. When you're scared, you might shut down. When you're anxious, you might run from everything. But instincts aren't always wisdom. Instincts are fast. Wisdom is slow. Marcus practiced slowing down his mind so that when the storm came, his hands stayed steady. Let me give you something practical. It starts with a simple habit. When something triggers you, don't react right away. Just ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? That one question, it creates distance between you and the feeling. You see, it's not the situation that causes the emotion, it's the interpretation. Let's take a modern example. You get a text from a friend that just says, okay, no emoji, no explanation. Now your brain starts spinning. Are they mad at me? Did I do something wrong? Why are they being cold? And just like that, you're anxious. But nothing actually happened. It was the story you told yourself that triggered the spiral. Marcus would have said, pause. Ask, do I know this for sure? Is this something I can control? And then respond calmly, or not at all. This is what Stoics call practicing reason before reaction. It's not ignoring how you feel, it's giving yourself just a little time to see clearly before doing something you'll regret. Another powerful technique he used was journaling. Every night, he'd write about the things that frustrated him, the people who annoyed him, the moments when he almost lost control, and by writing them down, he was training his brain to slow down, to reflect, to learn. You don't need fancy words. Just ask yourself, what made me react today? What could I have done differently? What will I do tomorrow? Even 5 minutes of reflection each night can make you 10 times more composed the next day. Now let's talk about something else Marcus practiced. It's called premeditatio malorum. I know, sounds intense, but it's actually really simple. It just means preparing for what could go wrong. Every morning he'd remind himself, you'll deal with rude people today, you'll face delays, stress, maybe even pain. And by expecting it, he wasn't shaken when it showed up. You can try this too. Before starting your day, pause for a minute and say, today I might face criticism. I might feel insecure. Things might not go my way, but I will remain steady. When you expect the challenge, it doesn't break you, it meets you, and you nod at it, because you already knew it was coming. Now this mindset, it's not about being cynical, it's about building mental armor, so that life doesn't hit you in the face when you least expect it. Another quick tool, breath. It sounds too simple, I know, but the next time you feel your blood pressure rising, stop and take one deep breath in, hold it, then breathe out slowly. That one breath creates space. And in that space, you remember who you are. You're not your emotion, you're the one observing it. You're the one deciding what happens next. And that's the core of Stoic control. It's not about shutting down, it's about slowing down long enough to choose your response, like a general planning his next move. So the next time someone pushes your buttons, before you react, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what's the wise response here? Then act with intention, not impulse. And when you do that, even once, you'll feel it, that shift from being ruled by emotions to ruling them. Now that we've built this mindset, let's see how Marcus handled one of the strongest emotions out there, anger. How to controlling anger. Now let's talk about anger, that sharp, hot energy that hits you right in the chest before you even know what's happening. It's one of the hardest emotions to control because it feels righteous, like you're justified, like you've been wronged, like you have to do something about it. Marcus Aurelius felt that too. He was a Roman emperor. People betrayed him, lied to his face, wasted his time. And sure, he had the power to crush anyone who crossed him, but instead, he wrote things like this: "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That one sentence, it changes the whole game, because what Marcus realized, and what most of us never stop to think about, is that reacting in anger doesn't punish the other person. It punishes you. It takes your peace. It burns your energy. It clouds your judgment. Now, I want you to imagine something. You're sitting in traffic, someone cuts you off, almost hits your car. Your heart jumps, and suddenly your hands are tight around the wheel. Your jaw is clenched, your chest is tight. You start thinking, what an idiot. Who does that? I should have honked harder. I should catch up to them. But let's pause right there. Did any of that make your day better? Or did it just ruin your mood and get your blood pressure going? Marcus would have said, let it go. Not because the other person deserves peace, but because you do. He understood that most people act from ignorance, from stress, from pain, from ego. And when you match their chaos with more chaos, all you're doing is mirroring the very behavior that upset you. That's why he trained himself to respond instead of retaliate. Here's something he wrote that always stuck with me. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Now, why would someone start their day like that? Because when you expect nonsense, it doesn't surprise you. He wasn't being negative. He was being prepared. And when the annoying people showed up, he didn't freak out. He just thought, there it is. And then he moved on. Now, you might be thinking, okay, cool for a philosopher, but what about me? I'm not sitting on a throne. I've got co-workers, kids, deadlines, people who push every single one of my buttons. That's fair. But the tools still work. Next time you feel anger rising, try this. Stop for just 3 seconds and ask, what would responding calmly look like right now? You don't have to suppress it. Just slow it down, even physically. Unclench your jaw, relax your shoulders, breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. Your body holds on to anger, and sometimes releasing the tension is enough to interrupt the storm. Another technique? Reframe the story. Instead of thinking, they disrespected me, ask, could they just be having a bad day? Could this have nothing to do with me at all? Because more often than not, it really doesn't have anything to do with you. And when you realize that, you get your power back. You're not letting them off the hook. You're stepping off the emotional leash. You're choosing peace, not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough not to be controlled. That's what Marcus taught. Not silence out of fear, but silence out of strength. So the next time you feel that fire rising, remember this. Don't be like your enemy. Be like the emperor who could have crushed people, but instead crushed his ego. That's the real flex. Now, anger might be loud, But it's not the only emotion that tests us. There's another one that creeps in quietly. It whispers all the worst-case scenarios, and it can paralyze you if you're not ready. Let's talk about fear and how Marcus learned to face it with calm and clarity, dealing with fear and anxiety. If anger is fire, then fear is fog. It creeps in quietly. You don't always notice it at first, but suddenly your chest feels tight, your thoughts are racing, and you're stuck in that what-if loop that never seems to end. What if I fail? What if they leave? What if it all falls apart? Marcus Aurelius knew fear well. He wasn't living in some peaceful paradise. He ruled during wars, plagues, betrayals. People he loved died. People he trusted turned on him. And still he showed up with steady hands and a steady heart. How? Because he trained himself to expect hardship, to welcome discomfort, not run from it. One of his tools was something called memento mori. It means remember death. I know that sounds heavy, but it's not about being morbid. It's about being clear. Marcus reminded himself that life is short and uncertain. And once you accept that, you stop fearing it. You stop wasting energy on things you can't control because you realize you never had control over them anyway. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." It's not meant to scare you. It's meant to sharpen you. Think about it. If you knew your time was limited, would you still let fear hold you back? Would you still let anxiety stop you from speaking up, from starting, from showing up fully? Probably not. Now let me bring this to real life. You got a job interview tomorrow. You're nervous. Your mind keeps spinning. What if I mess up? What if I don't get it? And suddenly that fear starts running the whole show. But Marcus would ask you, is the outcome in your control? No, but your preparation, your attitude, your breath, that's yours. And what happens when you bring your focus back to what you can actually influence? You stop spinning. You start grounding. Here's something else he practiced. It's called voluntary discomfort. It means doing small things that are a little uncomfortable on purpose. Why? So when life throws something difficult at you, you don't freeze. You've already trained your mind to sit with discomfort without panicking. You've taken cold showers, skipped a meal, walked instead of driving, turned your phone off for a full day. Simple things, right? But they build mental toughness without you even noticing. It's like lifting small weights every day, so when life hands you something heavy, you're ready. Marcus understood that fear loses power the moment you stop avoiding it. That's why he looked it in the face. He didn't pretend bad things wouldn't happen. He expected them, but he reminded himself that he was stronger than he thought. He wrote, "If it is endurable, then endure it. If not, stop complaining. Your mind can adapt." And that line, your mind can adapt, it's everything, because most fear isn't about what's actually happening. It's about what we think might happen. And your mind, it's flexible, it's capable. It just needs training. So next time fear shows up, don't try to shove it down. Sit with it, breathe through it, and ask yourself, what part of this is mine to control? That's how you go from spinning to steady, from frozen to focused, from afraid to prepared. And that's exactly how Marcus lived. Not with false confidence, but with quiet courage. And when you learn to master fear, you start discovering something else, something deeper. You start to find calm, even in the middle of chaos. And that's what we're going to talk about next. How to handle inner peace in chaos. There's something powerful about a person who can stay calm when everything around them is falling apart. Think about it. The world loves noise. There's pressure everywhere to react fast, to speak first, to keep running. But there's something almost magnetic about someone who just breathes, still, unbothered, focused. That's what Marcus Aurelius practiced, not just once, but every single day. He was the emperor of Rome, surrounded by war, disease, betrayal, politics. And yet, in the middle of that chaos, he still found a way to write things like "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." That's not just poetry, that's survival. Marcus didn't escape the chaos. He learned how to build peace inside of it. And that's what inner peace really is. Not silence outside, but silence within. Now here's the part that most people miss. Peace isn't something you find by accident. It's something you practice. Let me paint a picture. You wake up, and before your feet hit the floor, your phone's already buzzing. Messages, emails, missed calls. By the time you brush your teeth, your brain is already running a mile a minute. Sound familiar? That's the chaos most people live in every day. And they wonder why they feel tense, anxious, or emotionally worn out by noon. But Marcus would have done something different before anything else. He'd create space. He'd sit. He'd breathe. He'd write. He'd remind himself of who he is and what truly matters. You can do the same, even just 5 minutes in the morning. Sit in stillness. No phone, no noise, no urgency. Just ask yourself, what would a calm mind look like today? And in the middle of your day, when something throws you off, take one deep breath. In through the nose, hold, out through the mouth. That breath becomes a reset button. It tells your brain, I'm safe, I'm in control. Here's another tool, mindful walking. Yeah, it's simple, but it works. Go outside, leave the headphones, and just walk. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice the air, the sound, the pace. Your body slows, your mind follows. Even Marcus used nature to return to balance. He wrote about stars, rivers, trees, because nature doesn't rush, and yet everything gets done. And when the world starts to feel overwhelming again, which it will, you don't need to escape. You just need to return to that quiet place inside yourself. That's how you stay grounded. That's how you lead, even in chaos. And the truth is, peace isn't always loud or impressive. Sometimes it's just not reacting when someone tries to provoke you, or walking away instead of arguing, or letting something go, not because you're weak, but because you value your energy more than your ego. That's power. That's mastery. And when you start showing up like that, people notice, not because you're louder, but because your calm speaks louder than their noise ever could. Now, chaos might come from the world around you, but sometimes it starts inside, triggered by the little things you see or hear every day. So let's talk about that next. How to handle emotional triggers in modern life without letting them hijack your mind. It's one thing to stay calm when everything is quiet. But what about when the world won't leave you alone? Because let's be honest, most of us aren't dealing with sword fights and Roman betrayals. We're dealing with comment sections, text messages left on read, side glances, comparisons, and noise. Modern life is full of emotional landmines, and if you don't watch your step, they go off. So let's talk about that. The little triggers, the stuff that sneaks under your skin and messes with your peace. You scroll through social media, and you see someone your age buying their second house, smiling like their life is perfect. You feel something, maybe jealousy, maybe insecurity, but it's there. Or maybe you post something you're proud of and someone leaves a passive-aggressive comment. Your heart starts beating faster. You think about replying, deleting, justifying, but before you do, pause. Ask yourself, what? Marcus Aurelius would say, and he might remind you of something like this. If someone can prove me wrong, show me I'm making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I'll gladly change. It's the truth I'm after. He didn't let people's opinions shake him, because he wasn't living for applause. He was living for alignment, with truth, with virtue, with clarity. You don't have to react to every jab. And you definitely don't have to compare your path to someone else's highlight reel. That's where Stoic filtering comes in. Whenever something makes you feel off, ask the classic Stoic question, is this in my control? Not just once, but every time. Can you control how many likes that person got? Can you control what someone said behind your back? Can you control the way someone judged you for your choices? Probably not. But what can you control? Your response, your breath, your peace. Let me give you a real-life example. You find out someone's been talking about you behind your back unfairly, and that wave hits. Anger, embarrassment, even shame. Now, you have two roads. You can let it spiral, obsess over it all day, plot your clapback, hold on to the story, or you can pause and say to yourself, this is not in my control. Their words are about them, not me. That's not weakness. That's freedom. And here's another big trigger, money, stress. You see someone making more, living bigger, traveling, buying, and you start to feel small. But Marcus reminded himself daily that external things, wealth, status, reputation, they don't define a man. He wrote, don't hanker after what you don't have. Instead, fix your attentions on the finest and best that you have. And imagine how much you'd long for these if they weren't in your possession. That one mindset shift, it can flip comparison into gratitude instantly. The truth is, life will always throw emotional curveballs. But you don't have to swing at everyone. And when you stop letting every little thing pull at you, that's when you feel something you haven't felt in a while. Stillness. Now. Once you've made space by filtering out what doesn't serve you, it's time to fill that space with something better. A rhythm, a structure, a daily routine that keeps you anchored, just like Marcus had. Let's talk about what that looks like. Stoic daily rituals. So once you've cleared out the noise, once you've stopped reacting to every little trigger, the question becomes, what now? What do you build in that space? Marcus Aurelius had an answer. You build rituals. Now. That might sound intense, like incense and robes and dramatic chanting. But no, Stoic rituals were simple, intentional, built to protect the mind, just like armor. Marcus didn't rely on luck or motivation to stay centered. He had systems, and the first one started in the morning. He didn't reach for scrolls or scroll through gossip. He sat quietly and reminded himself of what was coming. He'd say, today you will meet ungrateful people, people who are rude, selfish, dishonest. Not to be negative, but to be prepared. That's called anticipation. When you expect discomfort, it doesn't throw you. When you expect resistance, then you don't take it personally. And that shift, right at the start of your day, sets your entire mindset. Now let's bring that to your world. Before you check your phone, before you check the clock, take 1 minute, sit up, breathe in slowly, hold, breathe out. Then say to yourself, today there will be stress. There will be people who misunderstand me. There will be delays, but none of that controls me. That's your anchor. And after that minute, decide who you want to be today, not what you want to achieve. Who you want to be. Calm, patient, focused, write it down if you need to. That's how Marcus built his inner compass. Through journaling, he didn't write for anyone else. He wrote for himself. Even just one sentence can shift your direction. Try something like, I will not allow someone else's chaos to invade my peace. Or, I choose how I respond. Today. That's your morning ritual. Calm, clear, and powerful. But now let's talk about the other side of the day. Because if mornings are for setting the tone, evenings are for checking in. Marcus was big on reflection. Every night he asked himself, what did I do well? What did I struggle with? What will I improve tomorrow? No guilt, no shame, just honest reflection, like a warrior sharpening his sword. You can do the same. Right before bed, put the phone down, even just for 5 minutes. Think back over the day. Where did you stay grounded? Where did you lose it? Don't overthink, just observe. And if something triggered you, don't judge it, learn from it. That's how you evolve, not by being perfect, but by being present. Now, in between morning and night, you've got the middle, the messy part, and that's where you build little micro rituals to keep you steady. Walking is one of them. Marcus used to take long walks alone, not just to move his body, but to clear his head. No noise, no rush. You can do this too. Even a 5-minute walk outside, phone in your pocket, eyes on the real world, can change your entire mindset. Another one? Silence. Just silence. Not music, not a podcast, just sitting with your thoughts, maybe while you eat, or drive, or sit by a window. Because silence shows you what's really going on inside, and once you can face that, you stop being afraid of it. Reading is another one. Stoics were readers, not to collect quotes, but to sharpen their minds. You don't need to read for an hour. Even a few lines a day and from something meaningful can recenter you. The goal with all of this is simple. Build structure before the world builds it for you. Because if you don't create your own rhythm, life will hand you chaos. And that's why these daily Stoic rituals matter. Not because they're fancy, but because they're foundational. So let me ask you something. What's one small ritual you can start today? Even if it's just a minute of breathing or a single sentence written down at night, it counts. Tell me in the comments, what would that ritual look like for you? Because rituals aren't about being perfect, they're about being intentional. Now, as powerful as these routines are, there's one area of life that will always test your emotional control, and that's your relationships. Let's talk about how Stoicism helps you stay centered, even when the people closest to you start pulling you in every direction. Stoicism in relationships, no matter how grounded you are, no matter how calm your mornings or how sharp your journaling habits, there's always one place where emotions come crashing in like waves: relationships. It's easy to be stoic in silence, but when someone you care about says something hurtful, when your partner shuts down, when your family pushes all the wrong buttons, that's when emotional control gets real. Marcus Aurelius dealt with this too. He didn't just lead armies. He had children, a wife, advisors, senators, people who misunderstood him, tested his patience, even betrayed his trust. And still, he reminded himself, whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: What fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize? He wasn't being soft. He was being smart, because when you respond with understanding, not blame, you don't just protect the other person's peace, you protect your own. Now let's get honest for a second. Have you ever had an argument where your voice gets louder and louder, and deep down you know it's not about the thing you're arguing about, it's about how you felt, about not being seen or heard or respected? We've all been there. But here's the key. Stoicism teaches you to pause before reacting emotionally. Not to suppress your feelings, but to channel them wisely. Let's say someone says something that hits a nerve. You feel hurt, defensive, maybe even disrespected. In that moment, the temptation is to snap back, prove your point, shut them down. But Marcus would stop himself. He'd ask, is this useful? Is this true? Is this necessary right now? That pause, just a few seconds, could save your relationship from a blow-up, or even worse, from saying something you'll never be able to take back. Now, Stoicism doesn't mean letting people walk over you. It means standing strong, without being pulled into every emotional whirlwind. You can speak your truth without raising your voice. You can set boundaries without anger. You can express love without losing yourself in someone else's chaos. Marcus knew that patience in relationships wasn't a weakness. It was the highest form of discipline. He also understood that people are flawed, deeply flawed, and that includes you and me. So when someone disappoints you, instead of reacting with, how could they do this to me? Try, people act from where they are, not where I wish they'd be. That shift alone, it frees you. It lets you respond with clarity, not confusion, with steadiness, not spite, with strength, not silence or shouting. Now this won't always be easy, but it's worth it. Because when you learn to handle emotional tension in your relationships, you don't just become easier to be around, you become a better listener, a better partner, a better version of yourself. And maybe that's what Stoicism really is in the end, not just thinking clearly, but loving wisely. Now that we've looked at how Stoicism applies to relationships, let's step back and ask a bigger question. What does it look like to live like Marcus Aurelius in today's world? Let's put it all together. How to become modern. Marcus. By now, you've probably started to feel it. This philosophy, it's not about sounding wise. It's about living wisely. Because if you really think about it, Stoicism isn't some ancient scroll locked in a museum. It's alive, it's breathing, and it shows up in the smallest choices you make, every single day. So what does it mean to become a modern Marcus? It doesn't mean growing a beard or wearing a toga. It doesn't mean quoting Latin or walking around with a copy of Meditations in your pocket. It means being the kind of person who can walk through chaos without becoming chaos. The kind of man or woman who keeps their word, even when it's hard. Who feels the fire of anger and doesn't let it consume them. Who sits with fear and walks forward anyway. That's rare in this world, but it's possible. And it's powerful. Imagine this for a second. You wake up, and instead of reaching for your phone, you sit up, breathe, and ask, who do I want to be today? Not just what you want to do, but how you want to show up. You walk into a stressful meeting, and instead of letting pressure break you, you take a breath, you respond calmly, you lead with clarity, you get a rude comment or someone throws shade your way, and instead of taking the bait, you shrug it off and move forward, untouched. Not because you don't feel things, but because you've learned how to hold the reins. That's what Marcus did every day, not perfectly but with intention, and that's all you need. Start with intention. Start with one breath. Start with one pause before a reaction. Start by asking yourself, is this in my control? Because every time you make that choice, you become more grounded, more focused, more free. That's how you build status, real status, not the kind measured in followers or titles, but the kind that can't be shaken from the outside. And when life hits you, because it will, you won't crumble. You'll bend, breathe, respond, and return to yourself. Calm, clear, unshaken. That's Stoicism. That's what it means to lead from within. You don't need to be an emperor to live like one. You just need to rule your mind, so the world doesn't rule you. And if you've made it this far, you've already started. Now, let's wrap it all up with one final thought, and a small invitation that might just change the way you carry yourself tomorrow. So here we are. We've walked through the fire of emotion, anger, fear, insecurity, and the chaos that lives in the everyday. And what have we learned? That emotions aren't the enemy, that peace isn't found outside, and that control, real control, doesn't come from dominating others. It comes from mastering yourself. Marcus Aurelius showed us that, not through perfection, but through practice. And you? You don't need to get it all right today. You just need to begin. One breath, one pause, one better response. Maybe it starts tomorrow morning, when someone says something that would have normally set you off, and instead of reacting, you breathe. You choose peace. That moment alone, that's victory. Now, if this video helped you even a little, consider subscribing and joining our journey into Stoicism. It means a lot and helps this philosophy reach more people like you. And I'd love to hear from you too. What emotion are you working on controlling right now? Tell me in the comments. Let's talk about it. You're not alone in this. We're all just learning, one moment at a time. And until next time, stay grounded, stay clear, and lead your life the way Marcus would have wanted you to, from the inside out.